Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video with our favorite Empires and Puzzles books. In this video, we want to talk about ethers, and we want to give you some tangible examples of where we think those can be best spent. This is a feature that's been out for a little while now, and so we've had time to think about it. I would imagine that Jeff is a cautious person like myself and wants to spend these things wisely, but you also don't want to hold them forever. So we think that at least in our own game, there's been a bit of a turning point, and there's some more comfort around what to do with these resources. So we're going to dive in there, talk about a little bit of the math based on the quests themselves, and then give you guys some actual recommendations. Everyone wants the answers for which hero do I spend these on, and I think we'll have some good recommendations for you today. As always, these are recommendations that are specific to our playstyle, the way we like to play the game, but I think where there is value is that both of us are aiming for versatility and really making these things count and making them work for you as well. Anything you want to add to that, my friend?
No, I think that was a great introduction to the topic. I am definitely at a place that I'm more comfortable talking about how where I am line breaking at least the 3 and 4 stars. I'm definitely being cautious on the 5s. Frankly, I couldn't line break a 5 today if I wanted to. I'm still missing the 5th 5-star Aether, but I am still playing around in my mind with which direction I'm going to go when I have that opportunity. But 3s and 4s are on the table for absolute certainty today.
Yeah, and we'll explain exactly why that is. And
Mhm.
from my perspective, it's an inarguable reason. So we'll get to that. Before jumping in, I wanted to discuss a few of the numbers of the quest, just so that's fresh in all of our minds. So I think it's called Trials of Omega. It's a cyclical quest. We're going to go through every color before coming back around. So that means that it's a 6-month cycle to return to the origin quest, I would say. So per that quest, you're gaining 52 Ether 3s. I haven't seen a nomenclature for this yet. I started calling them A3s, A4s, A5s, but there still seems to be some confusion. So it's funny that we haven't arrived there. But you'll get 52 of the Ether 3s, 24 of the Ether 4s, and 4 of the Ether 5s. So they've chosen interesting numbers to keep you just short. So they want you striving for the next ones, and that's kind of a behavior that we've come to expect in the game. And then the other numbers that I want to mention real quick before we dive in further, to limit break a 3-star hero, you're going to need 5 Ether 3s. A 4-star hero is going to need 20 Ether 3s and 5 Ether 4s. And a 5-star is going to need 35 Ether 3s, 20 Ether 4s, and 5 Ether 5s. So you can almost do one of each, basically, once you've accrued a few more. One of each would be 60 Ether 3s, 25 Ether 4s, and 5 Ether 5s. So you can get there pretty easily because the Ether 3s are easy to come by. So that's not been the direction that everyone has taken. And the context we wanted to discuss this in, and maybe this is time to get to the point, the reason why we're comfortable making recommendations is because, Jeff, what is the best source for obtaining ethers aside from the quest itself?
Sure. Outside the quest, we really only have 2 options for getting the ethers: winning a war. Although I did hear a rumor the other day that somebody got a 3-star ether and a loss. That would be kind of interesting. I have not heard that before. But winning a war is your best chance, but not a guarantee of getting ethers. But placing in the weekly raid tournaments has suddenly become much more of a priority, and not just placing, but placing well, because the higher percentage of your finish, the more ethers you're getting, apparently. So it seems, from what I have seen, that if you're in the top 1%, you're getting 4 ethers. And now they're still randomly distributed. So you don't know if you're going to get a 3, a 4, or 5, but you're at least getting a small pile of those each week.
Yeah, and actually, while we have that in our discussion, so from wars, it seems like tournaments are the best source for me. I've gotten maybe 1 or 2 in wars. Tournaments, if you can get top 1%, you're guaranteed 4, and the chances that a 5-star ether or an ether 5, whatever you want to call it, are quite good and much better than they are compared to the ascension items. So I have in front of me the tournament loot explanation explaining what you get in which tier. So ascension items in top 1%, there's one draw and a 4-star ascension item, 2% chance. The limit break materials, you get 4 draws and you have 5% chance at the 5 stars. So that's like collectively a 20% chance, I guess. I don't know that odds necessarily work that way. There's some debate that I've seen, but quite a good chance, more than double the chance of ascension items per individual draw, and you get 4 draws of these things. So they don't tell us what the chances are in wars, but I know from my own experience, it's usually pretty lackluster for me.
Yep, agreed. Really, the only advantage to the war is you get two opportunities each week,
Yeah.
but you do need to win to get them.
Yep. Which is easier said than done sometimes.
So this just underscores the point that the raid tournaments are now suddenly very important. And I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Small Giant is a business, and there is a business incentive there. They're not going to make money off of wars, but with raid tournaments, dangling more carrots to encourage buy-ins when people get ousted after 4 offensive losses, that's another 75 cents, another 75 gems. It's another way to get you to buy back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as we were talking about this video, with tournaments being the best source of loot, the immediate and excuse me, an obvious conclusion was it's essentially split, as far as I know, between tournament cycles, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. So equal chance of each. It's in some sort of cyclical rotation that we don't understand yet because they did expand the tournaments, and I think everyone was expecting 4-star tournament this week, and it was 5-star. So the pattern is yet to be fully determined. But if you have an equal chance, the obvious answer for me is 3 stars and 4 stars are a very good investment. Why? Because they're far, far cheaper than limit breaking a 5-star, and they both can increase your chances of getting 5-star ethers. It's not like a 3-star tournament. You can only get 3-star ethers. So limit breaking some key 3-star and 4-star heroes can cover you for 2/3 of the tournament to meaningfully get more of these materials and easily make that investment worthwhile, because what you have to spend to limit break these is not much in terms of what you can get. So this is one of the best returns on investment that I recall noticing in this game in terms of your effort, where it's like pretty cheap cost to increase your odds in 2/3 of the tournaments, which is fantastic. And there's ascension items and other, valuable things in those as well, emblems. So that's, for me, was the turning point. And maybe you arrived at this conclusion on your own, but for me, that was the turning point of what to do with these. And do you recall when that sort of occurred to you, or how your own allocation of these, spending these ethers, when that sort of changed and you're like, oh, this is the way to go?
Sure. It was actually similar to emblems for me. One of the things I've always been interested in the game is the in-game economy and the rarity of items. People also, refer to me as a challenge event player and stuff, because I compete most months and try to at least score high enough to get those 4-star ascension mats. I wouldn't say I particularly love the challenge events. I mean, there is something about playing them and some kind of intrigue with them, but it's kind of a part of the game to get more materials so that you have things to build your war and raid teams. So to get there, I focused a lot on building those teams so I can be competitive in those. Seeing the direction things are going to go with limit breaking, my first knee-jerk reaction was,
Oh.
all right, everybody. Sorry for the brief interruption there. We had to cut the tape. We had a little excitement outside of my place here with a cat fight that we needed to go break up. So apologize for that interruption. But as I was saying, a focus for me has been the in-game economy and trying to find the rare ascension materials. That was originally the drive for competing in those events. And when line breakers first came out, I did the math on how many we can afford to do. When I say many, how many 3 and 4 stars we could get away with without negative impacting the ability to line break a 5. And I realized right away, without harming our chances of leveling a 5, we could do a couple 3 stars or 1 4-star, and that doesn't screw the math up for doing 5. So my next question then was, well, which 3s do you do? And again, my brain first went to those heroes that I used to be competitive in the challenge events, because I knew other people who are competitive in the challenge events would be line breaking the same ones, and kind of to keep up with the Joneses, I needed to do that. But then I think what kind of popped the light bulb off for Mr. Spock, and definitely myself, is we've all suddenly seen all these 3 and 4 stars that are line broke in the raid tournaments. And then my brain went to, this is actually an even more important item, I would say, than the 4-star ascension items. And the place to get those is mostly in the raid tournaments. So now my strategy has definitely shifted to which heroes are going to be most effective in the raid tournaments. And that's sort of the route that I've been going with my 3s and 4s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't participate much in the challenge events. In fact, the last one I just played each stage one time and barely finished in time. But yeah, I had noticed, and this is something we had talked about, the tournaments like overnight got way more difficult. Like for the first time in probably like 16 to 18 months, I couldn't get out of the top 25%. I just got obliterated in one of these 3-star or 4-star tournaments because I already wasn't allocating emblems there. That may change a little bit as I am a later game player and just have more emblems. I'm waiting for the right people, so I'm not spreading them out quite so much. But I was like, holy crap, these have totally changed the game. And it makes it, the first thing I thought of is like, wow, they really need to have a team power cap because this is crazy. I don't think they'll do that because I think they love the chase. They want people to be like, I need these things to be competitive. I need these things to play. So I don't think we'll see that happen. But it totally changed the way I thought about the way that I wanted to spend them. I do put a lot of my thought and resources into 5-star heroes because that's what's fun to me. The heroes are more interesting. I like the PvP aspects in raids and wars. And so improving my success there has been my priority. But now I realize that improving my success in the tournament can improve my success in those areas by securing more of these resources. So there was a turning point for me there.
Yeah, I remember when tournaments first came out and people had this uproar over a 3-star tournament. Like there's all these people who are just so tunnel vision focused on 5 stars. And I get that, that's what's going to be most relevant in war and raiding. But again, I think they lose sight of that in-game economy, that if you're not winning in the 3s and 4s, you're missing out on materials. And now it's become even more of an more prevalent. So for someone like yourself that said, hey, I'm mostly interested in war and raiding, if you don't embrace this other aspect of the game now, you're going to find yourself falling behind. And what you experienced with how tough the 3 and 4s are, that's going to happen when people have these monster 5-star teams, and we've all missed out on the opportunity to get those materials because we weren't keeping up with 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
So I think there is an advantage to people who have been at least trying to keep up with 3s and 4s this whole time. But
yeah. And for me, it does show an existing imbalance because I already do pretty well in the 5-star tournaments. I've got a lot of good heroes. I've got a lot of emblems on them. I don't need a lot of help there, So it really is a strong argument for focusing on some 3-star and 4-star heroes. And if you're watching this right now and you haven't leveled a lot of these heroes, if you're even, multiple steps before this, absolutely outfit your roster strongly of key 3-star and 4-star heroes because these are really important parts for securing more of the resources that may impact the game, the part of the game that you find more fun. So definitely keep that in mind. Funny aside that I wanted to mention is you were talking about the tournaments and the outrage over the 3-star tournaments. I remember I've been pretty active on the forum for probably a couple of years now. I remember witnessing the death of 1-star and 2-star tournaments. That was supposed to be part of the cycle. And at one point, one of the employees from Small Giant created a poll and was like, do you guys want to have 1-star and 2-star tournaments? And only about, I can't remember, I think it was only less than 200 people voted. And they're like, all right, we'll never do it again. And it was just so interesting to me that few of people decided the outcome, but I was on I was on board with that because I didn't want to buy more roster space to level up 2 stars and 1 stars,
I still have a fully maxed 2-star team. I actually placed 67th in the one 2-star tournament that we had. I was all about it. And I think it's a shame that we never had a chance for the 1-star event. I mean, I'm getting a little far afield here, but imagine a 1-star event. There are no healers and there are no buffs. It is just all out attack. So it actually comes down just to tile play. And now, of course, we always have RNG in there, but
Yeah.
it really comes down to tile play and strategy of who you're taking out on the other side. I
Yeah.
was very fascinated by the idea of a 1-star tournament. So
That's a cool way to think about it. It didn't get past roster space for me. I
nope.
was like, damn, it's
Yep.
already tight, so I don't want to do it. But if there was a way around that, that's actually does sound interesting because of the different hero allocations. But we digress, as you mentioned.
Yep. Good
So,
conversation does that.
yes.
So let's jump into these heroes.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear your choices first. I mentioned a funny comment when we were talking outside of this conversation about how you're my data guy, and you've always done a really good job focusing and cataloging and just being very involved in the math side of things. And that's something that I've always appreciated about your perspective. And like when you used to do your tournament videos, preparing for tournaments when the cycle was known, you talked about, of the, I think it was 5 winners, all of them had this hero and stuff that gives really valuable and usable insights on how people can sort of try to emulate that success. So yeah, I'm curious to hear maybe let's start with 3 stars and we'll work over the 4 stars next. How did you decide first? Was it tournament specific, or were you thinking challenge events, or were you really trying to straddle the line between both?
My first, like I said, my knee-jerk reaction was to make sure that I was prepared to still stay competitive in the challenge events. Mm-hmm. And the good news is with challenge events is there's really just 2 colors. It's blue or fire, or ice or fire. And that comes down to Costume Gunner for shared damage and defense down to the enemy, and Wilbur for shared damage and defense down for the enemy. Okay. It also happened to be coincidental that the first Aether's trial, the first trial of Omega, was ice. So we ended up with all these ice Aethers, and I realized there was plentiful of the 3-star Aethers. So I did a lot of the heroes that we are going to be using for the challenge events, which are people like Nordry, the only elemental defense down 3-star. He was an obvious one. Costume Gunner, definitely an obvious one. We even use Costume Gunner on the legendary, on the 5-star events, because of that shared damage is so important. So those 2 were very obvious. The other ones that might not be as obvious, and I haven't limit broke these yet, but will be Ulmer and Ulmer Costume, just because of the defense down and the big attack boost up. I did do one of my Carols. Carol Costume is also part of my hit 3 teams for the challenge events. So that's where I first started out. And then seeing, as you have seen, and we've all witnessed, how tough the tournaments are going to be getting with these limit broke limit broke heroes, I started spreading out on people who I know are always strong, consistently strong. So for example, Malia, that increased critical chance I use. If you watch my 3-star events, I use her a lot on attack. She's often in defensive teams. She's great on both sides of the field. So she was a no-brainer. Kvassar, for bloody battles, he is by far, one of the biggest saviors of a bloody battle, because it's cheater healing, getting those minions out there.
Yeah.
And then another one, which is kind of a unique way to look at things, and I keep trying to share this information, but I know that the knowledge is still not widespread. But for rush events, for 3 and 4-star rush events, we don't have mana troops to drop that tile. So everybody is at very fast speed, which is 7 tiles, but there is a cheater way to get down to 6 tiles. And there's only 3 classes that can do that. It's druids, monks, and sorcerers. If you have a maxed emblem, you have that 4% node at the end. And if it's a costume, you have that 5% costume bonus. That's the 9% you need to drop a tile. So I have limit broke Chahinger, the fire hit all, normally a slow hero. He is still solid in some events, even if they're not rush. So I found him to be useful. And he is definitely a killer in the rush events. So he was also one that I didn't struggle too much on if I should limit break him or not. I I did do Hawkmoon. That is probably my first limit break regret. Uh, and that was because I limit broke her because her costume is a sorcerer, so drops that tile in very fast. But I regret it because she's a heal over time, which is not super helpful in a very fast event.
Mhm.
Uh,
And yeah, we're still
and
waiting on two. How many? We've had three of these now, so we're still waiting on green and purple.
correct. And I actually picked up enough purple that I did one Chochin, which is ironic. That's the only 3-star that I limit broke that I've not emblemed yet. But
Uh,
Chochin is also very helpful with the mana control.
uh,
And I think I actually just got enough ethers to do another purple, even though we haven't had the purple event. So that's kind of cool.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? I lie. It's green. I have enough to do a green, and I haven't done that yet.
Uh, how
Um,
about yellow? Anything in yellow? Oh no,
that
you
was
Malia.
Malia and Kavassar. Yeah, those are the two that I did there. And then I did a 4-star yellow. So I guess when we get to fours, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
The
Yes. When I was thinking about the tournament videos you used to do, Malia is one of the 3-star standbys that was like on most defenses, and that was actually what I was thinking of when thinking about those videos. But she came up
Mhm.
so much, so I'm not
Yeah,
surprised at all to see that was one of the choices you made.
yeah, Malia is definitely a rock star for the 3-star events. I also limit broke Botchin. Again, mana control super important in the fast tournaments. He's just strong in a lot of events, but
Yeah, yeah.
let's see who
You've
else.
gotten pretty good coverage so far. That's a
Hmm.
decent amount of heroes. So you're making good use of this, and you're ready to strike in these tournaments now.
Yep. So my focus now is switched a little over to the 4-stars. And again, they changed the tournament route again. I was anticipating 3 of the next 4 tournaments were going to be 4-stars.
Yeah,
So I jumped over, and this should be no surprise unless you read terrible grading charts. Lai Zhu, regardless of what you may read out there, Lai Zhu is phenomenal in every single type of 4-star raid tournament, period, bar none, offense, defense, anywhere else.
and quickly
So
go in the comments and tell us how you pronounce that because no one really knows. So I
yeah,
want
I
to.
pronounce her name Lai Zhu. How were you pronouncing it?
I was pronouncing it Liju.
Li Zhu.
But yeah, go share that in the comments below. Make sure to hit the like button on this video as well.
Yeah,
One
Lai Zhu, Li Zhu.
one more question on the 3-stars before
Yeah.
we move on to the fours. Any yeah, I guess it's any regrets? Is it just Hawkmoon that you've regretted so far in terms of
Yeah.
what you would recommend?
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with her limit broke. But I may have gone a different direction if I would have thought more about the fact that I don't use her all that much except for the rush. Uh, but she's a healer, so
Yeah,
that's would be ironic when we get to fives. I'll tell you right now, I don't know that I'll limit break a healer, but that's
yeah,
just me. But for the 3-stars, to me, there's a different pace and flavor to 3 and 4-star events, and I'm a little more concerned with healing in those events.
mm.
And there's less healer choices in 3-stars, so you can't double up healers quite as easily.
And then any heroes that you haven't limit broken there that you now wish may have taken priority, or do you feel pretty good about what you've chosen so far?
No, I feel great with what I chose. Like I
Yeah,
said, Omer costume will definitely be up next just because of that huge attack boost.
yeah,
He's not quite a Mickey, but he's like a 3-star Mickey.
yeah,
So 50% increase attack after elemental defense down and defense down. That makes things pretty wicked pretty fast.
yeah. Okay, yeah, let's jump over to 4-stars, and I would be, yeah, I'm not sure if, I guess it's possible you've gotten enough to limit break some greens or purples, but we'll probably be covering the same blue, red, yellow again.
Yeah, I only have limit broke 2 4-stars right now, and that's mainly because I did so many threes.
Yeah.
Um,
So we talked about
Laju,
like you, yeah,
her, her, the mana control queen.
yes,
Like I said, she's phenomenal on either side, offense or defense, any kind of tournament. And actually, with her limit broke now, I will be very tempted to take her into Rush Wars.
yeah,
I mean, for her to be fast and knock mana down from everybody,
yeah,
uh, and I'm quite happy with her stats. I think she'll be fine. And then the only other 4-star that I've maxed so far, and frankly, I don't even think it's a 4-star. It's a 5-star that they mislabeled as a 4, and that's Cillian from the Slayer family.
hmm
with comparing base cards, there's only like 3 fire heroes in the entire game that hit harder than Cillian. Like he just hits stupid hard. And Limit Broke, he's just a monster. So I mean, he's almost up there with Kagan. He hits harder. Actually, his base card hits harder than Costume Aslar if they have more than 50% health. If they have less than that, see, Aslar hits really hard. But I mean, Cillian is just a stupid 4-star hero. If you looked at this weekend's Epic Challenge event, you'll see a bunch of Cillians. I've actually maxed 2 of them, maxed emblems on them, and Limit Broke 1 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
But
scrolling through those teams, seeing how many teams would have him and how many teams wouldn't. There's a number that were split between just dual Collins, costume side, Limit Broken, or just max emblems, and then some with one Cillian and yeah.
But I used Cillian. I used Cillian in our last 5-star Rush War. I used him with Sorshi, the 5-star fire from Slayers. I always say her name wrong. Huh?
Saoirse.
Yeah. So I used Cillian and Saoirse together, and then they had that family bonus, and they were very fast in the very fast war. So you'll be seeing more Cillian in the 5-star tournament. I think one of the things that we're going to see is a lot of the Limit Broke 4s are now going to be used even more regularly in the 5-star events. They're just very beastly.
They can really stand up to that. And I think for a lot of people, including myself, you're using 4-star heroes in war anyways. Maybe not everyone, but I certainly do use a number of them. So if you can make them stronger and they have versatility other places in the game, it's a no-brainer.
And
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and some of these 4s, I think a lot of times when we look at people in war, they're using a lot of 4-stars as healers just because you can get them cheaper, you can max them out quick. People with their piles of regards and costume Karils or Bold Tusks. But I think the Limit Breaks are going to show us the power of the 4s in a different way. You're going to see a lot more of those in the events.
Yeah.
If you look at the legendary winners, it was not unusual this weekend to see Sir Lancelot in there because he's, doing a pretty healthy attack boost, and fire doesn't have like a Mickey Tarlac Ranveer.
Yeah.
So if you can cheat with Sir Lancelot, get a hit in there and boost attack, I think Sir Lancelot is going to be a choice that we see people doing.
Yeah.
With Rush Wars, I think we're going to see a lot more of the mana control people like Merlin and Proteus.
Yeah, I know my judgment. It's interesting to see that you've been slower to act on the 4-stars because I feel the same too. And I feel like my judgment is a bit more clouded there because I use 4-stars in so many more places. So of course, I really want to Limit Break Proteus, and he does have versatility in a lot of places, 4-star tournaments and 5-star tournaments. And he's just one of my favorite heroes and super powerful. But, my personal recommendation will be for versatility. So I think as these materials are in hand, I'll need to take a, more of a hard look at what the options are and what would make the most sense. The 3-stars are easy because I don't use them anywhere. I guess you use them in the challenge events, so that impacts it. But yeah, I do think they've done sort of an odd thing in this game. Not that it doesn't make sense, but there are some really strong heroes just kind of lurking in random places. Like interesting heroes that you're like, wow, I wish this 3-star hero was a 5-star hero, or like how Proteus and Hell are almost the same. If you max his emblems, they're nearly indistinguishable, even in terms of the overall damage being done. She has the advantage because you can push her higher with emblems, but I was surprised after I got her to see that with low emblems and Proteus with high emblems, it was a toss-up of who was better. His class is wasted on him because he's a wizard, but you just do it for the stats. So yeah, I think you're right, and I think that is actually a cool thing that I look forward to seeing is the ability to get more mileage out of these heroes that you don't use for much. And again, if that versatility is there, where it's like, well, I can use them in war, they're good for challenge events, which I like, and I can succeed in the tournaments, then that's pretty cool.
So I forgot to point out when I was talking about Lai Zhu, she is also a monk class, and has a costume. So guess what? 6 tiles in a rush warp. So that
So
was another thing that pushed me towards Liju.
no
She's
break.
just phenomenal everywhere.
Yeah, but no, everyone watching this video, don't limit break her, because I don't want to face more of her in the tournament, because she's a total pain in the ass.
Yeah, that's true. We should be manipulating this. Let's
Yeah,
everybody quick, go limit break Chow.
yeah, as many of them as you have.
Actually, you know what? Don't do Chow either, because he can be a druid with his costume and still be 6 tiles.
Yeah,
You got to watch these guys.
hard to think
The
off the top of your head who the worst 4-star heroes are.
the you know, that said, I think there's another place that we can enter the conversation with 3 and 4 stars.
Okay.
And I'm going to promote one of your other recently released videos, and that is, do average heroes really exist? And we have all kinds of ways to manipulate. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out Mr. Spock's video on, do average heroes really exist? But it basically comes down to tile math and how many tiles do you need to set them off. And I'm not surprised to see him put that video out shortly after 3 and 4 star tournaments, because the question of average heroes is actually much more important in 3 and 4s, because we don't have mana troops and we don't have as many options for increasing mana. So I will be treading very cautiously about line breaking 4 stars, 3 and 4 stars that are not fast, unless they are specifically going to be an asset in rush or in challenge events. Because speed in 3 and 4s to me is crucial, because we can't manipulate the speed like we can with 5s.
Yeah, and I think, there's, just to mention that video real quick, there's been a lot of response to that, which, I asked for because I said change my mind in the thumbnail. But there's been a lot of people pointing out, yourself included, all the ways that there are to improve those things. And I think, part of it is I just wanted to start that conversation, because I think a lot of people don't think even remotely as tactically about the game as we do. And I think it can be helpful to go, oh, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that, and trying to get people more invested in the tactical nature of the game, because that's what I think is cool. But yeah, I think a big part of where that came from, looking back now, is tournaments, where it's like, God, I brought this hero. I don't have any mana boost on them. I don't have any heroes that can boost their mana. And I wasn't even able to fire them because they were acting like a slow hero, because I had only 3 matches available.
Yep. It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
And to reference another video, actually our first collaborative video like this, when we talked about 3-2 versus mono, that's another reason why I really lean much more towards mono sometimes in the 3s and 4s, because you have that mana efficiency. If I get the matches, I'm getting mana for the whole team when I'm doing that. But it's tough. Mana and the play style to me works totally different in 3 and 4 stars. It's a very different kind of game.
Yeah.
But you are correct. When you suddenly realize you need a 4th match to get somebody fired up, and the chances of making 4 on-color matches in the first 4 moves of the game, and you're facing a tank that's going to do something ugly to you, like Liju, who takes away the mana that you just struggled to build,
and that screws up your breakpoints even more. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out those videos that we've done and you've enjoyed this discussion so far, I'm going to put these things into a playlist to make it easier to find. But we're making our way through talking about some of the topics that we think are interesting in the game and think there's value. And we don't always have the same conclusions about what to do. I think this is a case where there's actually a lot of overlap. But there's value in that. There's no one way to play the game. We want the game to be enjoyable for everyone. And so we thought sharing disparate points of view in a cordial context gives people the benefit of seeing these different points of view, hearing them discussed against each other in real time. And you can take what you want from that and play the game in a way that's fun to you. So I don't want to make the video too much longer. I'll give you a second for final thoughts if you have any. But I just wanted to wrap up that these are our recommendations. It was mostly your recommendations, but since we agree on the reasons for these, I agree with the recommendations as well. But we wanted to give some tangible examples. I think our perspective is always, it depends. Who should I limit break? It depends. And people don't find that as satisfying, even though I truly believe that is the best answer, and especially if we can expound on why that is. But we wanted to find a little bit more of a middle ground in this video and give some specific examples, and that way people looking for easier answers or who don't enjoy thinking about it as much can walk away with something there as well. So I feel like we've
Sure.
accomplished that. We'll definitely have to do something in the future talking about 5 stars. I think that's such an investment that
Mhm.
we're hesitant. I have seen what I would consider some wrong decisions, and we can talk about that.
Many, many, many.
Yeah, we can talk about that in the future video for this. So what I want you guys to do, hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed to both of our channels, and share your thoughts in the comments. One of the things that I'd like to hear is, what do you want to hear us talk about in other videos? We're open to ideas. These videos are for your benefit, so we're more than happy to talk about what it is you guys want to hear about. So yeah, any final thoughts you want to give to the people?
Sure. One request, one thought. The request would be also in the comments. Put your arguments up on which 3 and 4s you think deserve to be limit broke and why. I know there's a lot of Poppy fans out there, and I just can't get behind her because she only fires once when I fire her, and it's always 3 or 4 times when she's firing at me. So I
Yeah,
find her annoying. But Poppy aside, 3s and 4s, who are you limit breaking and why? What are you valuing and where are you seeing their use?
great.
With 5s, I agree with you. I think it's too premature. And I think people are rushing because it's this exciting shiny new toy. They get that hard to get 5th Aether and they're jumping in there to line break people, limit break people. I keep saying line, excuse me, limit break. And I think it's something that's too easy to rush. If anybody has ever used the reset coins on emblems, that should give me an indication of how dangerous it is to do 5s, and you're not going to be able to undo them. The cost for 3s and 4s is relatively low. I'm still undecided who I will limit break with 5s. But I can tell you this, I'm quite certain I'm not going to be limit breaking any healers. I'm pretty certain that I will not be limit breaking any hero that is clearly part of a current meta. I will be looking for longevity, versatility, heroes that can be used across the spectrum of the entire game, PvE, PvP.
I know what you mean.
Yes, I'm fumbling on words today. But when we're playing against each other in raids and wars, but also, the challenge events, Titans, like I enjoy all of Empires and Puzzles, and I prefer to concentrate on heroes that are going to be usable everywhere. But I just would say caution is going to win the game with the 5-star limit breakers. People are rushing and doing some really goofy things, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll definitely do a video on that, so you guys can expect that, but it'll probably be a little while because, again, we want to be able to do it when we have confidence, and it's too early right now. So yeah, great to have you as always. Really appreciate your insight. Enjoy these conversations, and the responses on these videos always seem to be great as well. So we'll make sure to keep this going, and make sure to share your thoughts and suggestions, and as Jeff mentioned, your arguments for the decisions that you've made as well, knowing that there's no wrong answers. Doesn't matter if people agree. Do what's fun for you, and we're sharing what we think is the right way to go about that as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to both channels, check out the playlist for other videos that we've done, and we will see you in the next video.